Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Jai Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Paramahansa Parikacharya Ashtottara Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parikacharya Ashtottara Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavini Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Kwantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, and Samaveta Bhakta Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. So, today being the appearance day, I believe it is, of Rasikananda Prabhu, a wonderful disciple of Sri Shyamananda Prabhu. We'll read about him first from the Samadhis book. Sri Rasikananda Prabhu, Rasika Murari, appeared as the son of a king. He became a perfect sage, Gaudiya Vaishnava scholar, Rasika Bhakta, and the most beloved disciple of Sri Shyamananda Prabhu. On Sri Shyamananda Prabhu's order, Rasikananda became the head pujari and served his guru's deity of Govindaji with total dedication. His attentive, loving service increased Govindaji's beauty and pleasure. Rasika Murari enchanted the devotees with his unprecedented deity service. After firmly establishing Govindaji's worship, he accepted Shyamananda's order to preach. He traveled widely for 40 years, influencing everyone with the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Rasikananda delivered everyone from pious royal families to Muslims, outcasts, agnostics, atheists, and even wild animals. Now, I think he was preaching in Orissa, if I'm not mistaken. Does anyone know for sure? You're not sure either. Okay. Right? There's a whole book about him, which I have. One time, some mad elephants attacked Rasikananda. Calmly, he chanted, "Gauranga, Gauranga, Krishna, Krishna," while sprinkling water on the rampaging beasts. The elephants immediately stopped charging, humbly bowed their heads, raised their trunks, and bellowed, "Hare Krishna! Hare Krishna!" Sorry, that's the best I could do. At the time of leaving his body, Rasikananda began a powerful kirtan. Now wait a minute, it doesn't describe here that he initiated one of them. Does that sound right? Yes, he initiated one of them, who surrendered to him, right? Okay. Maybe we'll read more about that tonight, because I give class tonight. At the time of leaving his body, Rasikananda began a powerful kirtan. Then he left this world by entering into the Chirachora Gopinath deity in Ramuna, Orissa. Devastated in separation, his disciples dropped their mridangas, kartals, and their bodies. The Pushpa Samadhis of all these pure devotees stand near the temple. Rasikananda Prabhu's Pushpa Samadhi stands next to Shyamananda Prabhu's near the temple of Radha Shyamasundar. Shri Rasikananda Prabhu ki jai. Okay. Now. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 13th day of November 2023 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Canto 7, The Science of God. Chapter 2, Hiranyakashipu, King of the Demons. Text number 47. Yaval Linganvito Yatma Tavat Karma Nibandhanam Tato Viparyaya Klesho Maya Yogo Anuvartate Yava Linganvito Yatma Tavat Karma Nibandhanam Tato Viparyaya Klesho Maya Yogo Nivartate Yava Linganvito Yatma Tavat Karma Nibandhanam Tato Viparyaya Klesho Maya Yogo Nivartate Yava Linganvito Yatma Tavat Karma Nibandhanam Tato Viparyaya Klesho Maya Yogo Nivartate Yava Linganvito Yatma Tavat Karma Nibandhanam Tato Viparyaya Klesho Maya Yogo Nivartate Yavalinganvito yatma tavat karma nibandhanam tato viparhiya klesho yogo nivartate. Yavalinganvito yatma tavat karma nibandhanam tato viparhiya klesho maya yogo nivartate. Yavalinganvito yatma tavat karma nibandhanam tato viparhiya klesho. Ladies? Yavalinganvito yatma karma nibandhanam tato viparhiya klesho maya yogo nivartate. Yavat, as long as, linga anvitaha, covered by the subtle body, he, indeed, Atma, the soul, Tavat, that long, karma, of fruitive activities, Nibandhanam, bondage, Tataha, from that, Viparyayaha, reversal, wrongly thinking the body to be the self, Kleshaha, misery, Maya Yogaha, a strong relationship with the external illusory energy. Anuvartate, follows. Translation, continuing with the Hiranyakashipu Gita. As long as the spirit soul is covered by the subtle body, consisting of the mind, intelligence, and false ego, he is bound to the results of his fruitive activities. Because of this covering, the spirit soul is connected with the material energy and must accordingly suffer material conditions and reversals continually, life after life. Purport. The living entity is bound by the subtle body, consisting of the mind, intelligence, and false ego. At the time of death, therefore, the position of the mind becomes the cause for the next body. As confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 8.6, Yang yam vapi smadan bhavam jajajante kalevaram. At the time of death, the mind sets the criteria for the spirit soul's being carried to another type of body. If a living being resists the dictation of the mind and engages the mind in the loving service of the Lord, the mind cannot degrade him. The duty of all human beings, therefore, is to keep the mind always engaged at the lotus feet of the Lord. Savai manak Krishna padada vindayo. When the mind is engaged at the lotus feet of Krishna, the intelligence is purified, and then the intelligence gets inspiration from the Supersoul, the Dami Buddhi Yogam Tam. Thus, the living entity makes progress toward liberation from material bondage. The individual living soul is subject to the laws of fruitive activity, but the Supersoul, or Paramatma, is not affected by the fruitive activities of the individual soul. As confirmed in the Vedic Upanishad, the Paramatma and the Jivatma, who are likened to two birds, are sitting in the body. The Jivatma is enjoying or suffering by eating the fruits of the bodily activities, but the Paramatma, who is free from such bondage, witnesses and sanctions the activities of the individual soul as the individual soul desires. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So some of you may not know this, but this analogy of the two birds in the tree is also there in the Bhagavatam. And I'm just going to read the two verses describing that, if you'll let me. Okay. No, not the two birds in the tree. I mean, the Supersoul and the soul is mentioned, but not the analogy. So this is 11th canto, 11th chapter, verse 6. It's within the Uddhava Gita. So Krishna says, by chance, two birds have made a nest together in the same tree. The two birds are friends and are of a similar nature. One of them, however, is eating the fruits of the tree, whereas the other, who does not eat the fruits, is in a superior position due to his potency. The bird who does not eat the fruits of the tree is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as the Supersoul, who by his omniscience perfectly understands his own position and that of the conditioned living entity represented by the eating bird. That living entity, on the other hand, does not understand himself or the Lord. It's the conditioned soul, of course. He is covered by ignorance and is thus called eternally conditioned, whereas the personality of Godhead, being full of perfect knowledge, is eternally liberated. Now there's a third verse here, which I'm going to quote, and I put into a little poem. Dehastop in the dehasto vidvan swapna yatotitaha adehastop idehasta kumati swapna drigyata. Which means, like one awakened from a dream, the wise soul sees the truth. Though dwelling in the body, he's entirely aloof. The foolish soul, however, though he's transcendental too, sees the body as himself, as if the dream were true. Hare Krishna. So back to the Hiranyakashipu Gita. So there's, as those who've been here for class for a few days, you've seen that Prabhupada is emphasizing the role of the Supersoul here. And this, I just wanted to make this comment because I forgot to make it when it came up in the class. And one of these purports, I think it was, or a translation, described the living entity, the conditioned living entity, as a puppet, right? And then the question came up, I was going to ask the same question Maharaj asked, well, where does that leave room for free will? And then I realized the next day that we are puppets. Either we're puppets of the three gunas, which are also compared to ropes, right? Material energy, or we voluntarily decide to be Krishna's puppet. So that's our freedom. For millions of births, we wander in different species in complete ignorance. Every body we get, we identify completely with that body, whether it's an ant, a tree, a human being, or a demigod, whatever it is, right? So we are therefore controlled by the false ego, as described here, the conditioned mind, which are being influenced at every moment by the material energy. And the Supersoul is there sanctioning that. He's inspiring us how, like, whether it's a dog or whatever, you know, we call it instinct, but it's really the Supersoul telling them, okay, here's where you go to get food, you know, bark in this way, and let it be like that. But for a human being, it's still the same Supersoul. We have the option, we have the ability, because of the higher intelligence, if we come in touch with the pure devotee, in other words, a realized soul, who can enlighten us either directly or through a medium, like we have books, you know, screens, whatever it may be. But the words, the knowledge, and the personality of someone who is freed. And then that wonderful analogy given by Lord Chaitanya, you know, Brahmanda Brahmatekon, Bhagyavan Jeev, Guru Krishna Pasare Pai, Bhakti Lata Bij. So there's this wandering going on. We're wandering with different species, different planets, up and down the universe, right? Completely in ignorance for millions of births. Who knows how many births of Brahma we've done that for, you know. But the fortunate, we've all come in touch with that pure devotee, directly or by some medium or representative, but the pure words of the pure devotee. And that has planted a seed, the seed of bhakti in our heart, the seed of the creeper of bhakti. It's a very nice analogy Lord Chaitanya gives. And if we respond to it, meaning that the seed is planted, and along with the seed, a very important part of the seed is the faith in the truth of this philosophy that's being taught. So it's as is described in this passage in the CC where it's related, what is that seed? It's the instructions, and it's the faith, and it's the holy name, and all the things that were given first. And if we pursue it, if it then inspires us to associate with devotees, that's the next thing. Because according to Rupa Goswami, and those famous two verses, these verses can be meditated on every day. They describe the progress from faith, from Shraddha to Prema. So that seed, a very important part of it, is the faith in the instructions. And that's why meeting a pure devotee is so important, because they manifest the qualities that they're saying you can achieve by this process. And if we're fortunate enough to think, oh, those are good qualities, I want to try to get those qualities, then we pursue the process. And then the Supersoul is now no longer simply an observer and a sanctioner. Upadrashta anamantachar, Krishna says in the 13th chapter, I think it is, right? Overseer and permitter. And he's giving the intelligence by which we can continue our material activities. But no, he's acting like Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. Dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mamapiyantite. That those who are serving me sincerely, even in the beginning state, he's giving the intelligence by which you can progress in devotional service. And so that's the important, essential role of the Supersoul. And we can't hear him. He's with us all the time, but we can't access him. We're getting so much inspiration, intelligence, how to act materially, but he's not pleased with that. He wants us to act spiritually. So that we block out in our conditioned state. That's the whole idea. But if there's, he comes externally. This is in the CC as the Acharya, as the Shastra. He also comes, and as the general devotees in general who can inspire us. So there's that effort. Krishna wants us back. He's not neutral. Although as a Supersoul, he performs that role because we have to take the step. We have to show some sincerity, for him to start giving us the intelligence. So that's very important to understand that we're not alone in this heart. God is here in the heart, and He will help us if we want Him to. And this is one of the roles of prayer. Prayer is very interesting because you may not be a pure devotee. The pure devotees are praying all the time. That famous pastime where Prabhupada was in front of the deities, I think it was Krishna Balaram deities, I'm not sure. And he was ardently praying. He was obviously praying. And one devotee came up and asked him, Prabhupada, what are you praying for? So I'm praying that I never fall down. Oh, Prabhupada, you can never fall down. You're a pure devotee. He says, that's why I can't fall down, because I'm always praying at every moment. So what is a prayer? We read some of my most favorite prayers, Prabhupada's prayers of Queen Kunti, And so you read a prayer there which inspires you. You say, I'd like to pray like that. Like one of my favorites there in her series is, it's not exactly a prayer, it's a statement. Because the prayers you find in the Bhagavatam, there's a mix. There's always the obeisances, if you study them. I once did a seminar with Ramapad Maharaj in Chicago on Vandanam, prayer. And I was puzzled because Vandanam means obeisances, but it also means prayer. So which one is it? And the answer is it's both. And you find in Queen Kunti's prayers, the very first words are, I bow down to you. Namasye Purasham Prajam. That's the first prayer, first words of the first prayer. Namasye, I bow down, I offer my obeisances to you. And the very last words of the last prayer is also Namaste, Namaste. So they're all there. And within she's also bowing down. Krishna Vasudevaya, I think there's some verses there. But there's also glorification. Glorification. And then there's a request, right? That's part of a prayer. Now, did you ever notice the prayers that we offer to Tulsi every morning, right? And we offer obeisances. Then we glorify her. Those who surrender unto you have their wishes fulfilled, right? So you help them become a resident of Vrindavan. So you're glorifying how potent she is, to be able to do that. And then you request, my desire is to reside in Vrindavan, be your maidservant. Please make me your maidservant. So there's a request there. So that glorifying the Lord helps one to be confident that your prayer will be answered. You're glorifying, you're so powerful, you can do anything, Krishna. Please give me pure love for you. Now you could pray for whatever you want, but material prayers show that you don't have real knowledge. That's foolish. And that's why mostly people don't pray to Krishna for material things, because they know he'll take everything away rather than give it. So, we'll pray to Shiva, and Durga, anybody but Krishna. He's famous as a thief, right? He says right in the Bhagavatam, till Yudhishthira, in the latter part of the Bhagavatam, I forget which chapter, I think he's maybe on the battlefield of Kurukshetra where they met. It says, what is it? How's it go? Yes, thank you. Yasyaham anugunnami harishe taddanang shanai. That if I really show my mercy to someone, he says gradually, it can also be suddenly, take away their material wealth. Well, if you're going to pray to Krishna for material wealth, he said, well, forget, I won't know Krishna. So what happens then? He's just talking about an ordinary member of a household, you know. Then your wife and children, they don't want to see you anymore. Now you're broke, you're busted, you know. You owe money, you know, forget it, get out of the house. So, so then you have no one else to take shelter of but me. You see? In other words, you're desperate. And we have that same thing with Kunti. Vibhadaksanta takshashva tattva tattva jagadgaro bhavadu darshanang yaksad apunar bhavadarshanam. She recounts all the dangers, some of the dangers that she went through, including the war itself, the Mahabharata war, the life in the forest. You know, they were exiled. She went with them. She was also there. And, you know, she was there when they escaped from that burning house. She was also part of it. And I remember this incredible scene where in the Mahabharata, where Bhima is looking at his glorious mother, you know, who's a queen. They had run from that house that was set on fire. It was a ploy. You know, Dhritarashtra was part of it. He was encouraged them to go, right? I think it was Dhritarashtra. And it was made at the house of, they had the mistake. I got to throw in these editing details because I'm always conscious of the house of shellac. So when it came to it, I said, shellac. Shellac is like a liquid. So I looked it up. It wasn't shellac, Prabhupada said. He said lac, L-A-C, the house of lac, which is made from insects. You know, it's very flammable thing. So they coated it all with lac. In other words, it would go up in fire with the slightest little match to it. Unlike some of our lights over here, we have to get better at making them. But anyway, so, but Vidura saved them. He told them about it. He gave a hint, right? There was a little riddle that they solved. Okay, they're in danger. So they escaped, and they had to run. They didn't have an army. They had no money. You know, they were just, this is what happened. After the gambling match, this is all happened. So anyway, then I remember this scene. Bhima is looking at Kunti. She's sleeping on the ground, you know, under a tree or something. They set something up. Here's this queen, you know, this princess, the queen, and she's sleeping like that. So she's remembering all that. Now when she offers this prayer, because Krishna's about to leave, you know, and in earlier dangers, when there was that thing with Durvasa Muni, you know, Duryodhana had pleased him and he promised him a boon, and just like Kaikeyi, the wife of you know, Ram's, one of his stepmothers, I'll take it later. In other words, you know, wait until I really need it. So Duryodhana, he you know, he asked him, okay, now I'm ready for the boon. So you go out in the forest. They're exiled in the forest. And Draupadi had this boon that whenever, as long as she didn't eat, she could feed as many people as possible, you know. So you go to the Pandavas, here's where they are, out in the forest, and you go after meal, you know, you go after lunch, well, you know, an hour after lunch, say. And you appear with all your disciples. He had 60,000 disciples, Durvasa Muni. Durvasa, you know what Durvasa means, Nagakirtan? I thought Durvasa means his garments were far away. That's what I know in my Sanskrit. No, it means that he's very difficult to live with. Durvasa. So anyway, but he gives these boons. So he said, okay, I'll go there with my 60,000 disciples, and you go at lunchtime, because he's Brahmin, you know, and there's a Kshatriyas, so they have to feed you. So they'll be out there in the forest with, you know, little roots and whatever they cooked, and they won't be able to feed you. And so it'll make a big offense, and then you can do whatever you want to do, you know, curse him, kill him, whatever. So he went there, and he said, oh, welcome, welcome. And then he said, please take a bath first in the river, then come and we'll have lunch. And then he said, what are we going to do? We don't even have our little lunch. We just ate, you know, and Draupadi had definitely eaten. So maybe Kunti was there with him. because she remembers this. So, but anyway, they come, Krishna came there, and he said, you know, what's going on? As if he didn't know. He said, well, here's the problem. We can't, they're taking a bath, they're going to have lunch, we have nothing left. And I already ate, so we can't, you know, I can't feed them. He said, well, go to the pot and see if there's something. He said, no, there's nothing left, we ate everything. Just see if there's some little sabji. So they found a little piece of sabji caught in a pot, as you do, you know, there's always some, otherwise you wouldn't need to wash the pots. And we always need to wash the pots, and I'm not going to get into that. So he ate it, and as soon as he ate it, all 60,000, plus Durvasa Muni felt as filled as anything. They felt embarrassed. We can't go to ask him for lunch, so they snuck away. So they say he saved the situation, as he's doing all throughout, you know. So she's remembering that, and he said, well, when we were in danger, we would see you all the time. You would save us, whether it's Draupadi with the sari and everything, or with the pots, and you're always saving us. But now you're ready to leave? Let those dangers come again and again, so that we can see you again and again. You see? So this prayer means that you're asking Krishna for something. And we have to learn from the Shastra, from the Guru, from the Acharyas, what we should pray for. Because we can pray for anything. We can pray for something material. Like I said, probably go to some other deity for that. But the point is, we want to pray to Krishna because we know he has the most valuable thing. So what do the great souls pray for? They pray for pure attachment. They pray for pure devotion. So many prayers I've learned from the writings of the Goswamis. Here's one I put into a poem. Bhujanga, this is from Stavamala. Bhujanga da prachandaka spudu da kanda chudankure. Niranka shadraganchada brahmina badna bringam brahme. Patanga tu hitustati banukutir kedi priye patas pudutu me mohus twahi mukunda shuddharati. So you may have understood at the end of it. So you wear the best of crests, a crown of perfect peacock plumes. Your dancing glances stun the bees meandering midst the blooms. You relish love play in a cottage by Kalindi's shore. O Krishna, may pure love for you be mine forevermore. And this is the prayer you'll find, Lord Chaitanya taught us, Nadanang Nadanang Nasundamin. I don't want wealth and women followers, the fruits of mundane piety, liberation from this world of limitless anxiety. For me, O Lord, these common goals have not the slightest worth. Let me serve you purely now and in each future birth. So this is what we should pray for when we chant Hare Krishna. Prabhupada told us it's a prayer. It's calling out in desperation, you know, to Radha and Krishna, please engage me in your service eternally. Please bestow on me pure faith in all these things that we know will help our bhakti. You know. So then the Supersoul hears that. You know, and the sincerity of the prayer, then miracles can happen. So, but the point here is that as long as we are in this subtle body, this material subtle body, which is composed of mind, intelligence, and false ego, that's really the binding force. Whatever we do with the gross body, it leaves an impression on the subtle body. You know what I'm saying? And Krishna makes it very clear in the Gita, right, beginning of the 8th chapter, near the beginning of the 8th chapter. First he says the positive end. Antakale tamameva smodan mukpa kalevadam hyakpriyati samadbhavam yastinatvrta sankshaya. At the end time, meaning death, anyone who thinks of me, you'll certainly come to me. You know. So that's what we're trying to do. The whole process of everything we do is to increase our remembrance. Smartavyaksatatam Vishnu vismartavyo najatushit sarva vidyan shadaksur etayoreva kindya. Smartatam Satatam Vishnu, and Prabhupada says in his translation that Vishnu is an expansion of Krishna, meaning that always remembering Krishna. That's what this verse is about. So to always remember Krishna and never forget him. All the other processes of bhakti, even chanting Hare Krishna, coming to Arati, taking a bath, are servants of these to facilitate our constant remembrance of Krishna. You see, and that it's that constant part that's hard to achieve. Because I think right now probably all of us are thinking of Krishna, right? Hopefully. You know, he's right there. We're in the Bhagavatam class. But to not forget him, that's the real hard part. The constant remembrance. I'll share with you, it's wrapped up with an editing things, but it's very important. At the end of the Bhagavatam, and you'll be interested, I can give you the reference, the exact reference. 12th canto, I think it's the last chapter, maybe the next to last chapter. There's 8 verses describing the process of hearing and chanting, the glories of hearing and chanting. What's the first word? Sankirtan. Sankirtamano Bhagavanananda Shrutana Bhava Vasanani Pungsam Pavishchittam Vidanotyashesham Yatata Moko Brahmavati Vata. Very wonderful verse. I did a slideshow on this one. By nicely hearing and chanting the powerful glories of the Lord, Bhagavanananda Shrutana Bhava, he enters into the heart. Now he's already there, but it's describing what we learned in the 2nd chapter of the 1st canto. He cleanses away, if you're hearing, extensively and purely. Shrutana Vyasanangi Pungsam, Vyasanam are the pains to do sin. It's all cleansed away. Vidunot Yashesham, he cleanses away without leaving any remnant. Just as the sunshine destroys all the darkness, or a powerful wind will send away the fog. So that's hearing pure vibrations. On the other hand, Mishaganasta Asatira Satkata, those words that do not glorify the Lord are false and useless and harmful. And then there's a verse and a half of description of the Krishna Katha that's the sweetest in the whole Bhagavatam. This is it. Tadeva Satyam, Tadohaiva Mangalam, Tadeva Ramyam, Tadeva Satyam, Tadeva Satyam, Tadohaiva Mangalam, Tadeva Punyam, Bhagavad Gunodiyam, Tadeva Ramyam, Ruchidang, Nabangabang, Tadeva Shaswang, Monaso Mahotsavam, Tadeva Shokarna Vashoshananganam, Hitotamashlok Gunakayashiti. I forget exactly the last line. So then he gives a list. They're true. The truth is the glorifications of Krishna, as spoken as it is from the Bhagavatam by the great acharyas of the book. Taro Satyam, and very mangalam, and automatically brings punya. Just hearing it makes you pious. It's so purifying, And then Tade is very delightful. Ramyam, ruchidang, full of taste. Navang, ever fresh. There's one ashtaka I've been singing every day now for years, practically. Some of you have heard it, I've been in class. It's Kunja Bihar Ashtaka. Inna Nilamani Mandalavana Pullani Pakasamanchitaka Rupa Goswami. And it's just delightful. I put it into a poem. I'll share it when we have a little more time. And but it never gets old. Just like Hare Krishna. It's like, your material mind is saying, okay, I've heard that already, I got something new to show me. But actually, that if you really hear nicely, there's going to be transcendental pleasure there. It's not that, okay, you got anything else? No, but there's so much else. But that's always ever fresh, right? It's Krishna. Krishna is never old, never gets old. So it goes on like, I won't go into the whole ashtaka, it's very wonderful. But the last 2 verses deal with this process of always remembering Krishna. And what we had is avismriti. Avismriti means not forgetting. So this was the team that we had, myself, Gopi Pranadhana Babu and Vidyananda Maharaj. So it came out remembering. But remembering is not the same as not forgetting. Because we're all remembering Krishna at times, right? But not 100%. So never forgetting is what we're after. Avismriti. And that's what this verse says. Smartavya vismartavyo najatuchit. Remembering and also never forgetting, because that's how we got here. We decided to forget. And then you can go on forgetting for billions of births. And now we're remembering periodically. If we were remembering 24 hours a day, then as soon as we heard the holy name, tears would flow and everything rolling on the ground. But we're voluntarily still forgetting, desiring to enjoy something. So so what he's saying is that hearing and chanting, finally results in this constant remembrance of Krishna. And I'll just share that verse with you. From that book, Bhakti Siddhanta book that Bhakti Vikash put together, very encyclopedic. There's one section there describing the verses that Bhakti Siddhanta would quote, and this is one of them. Avismati Krishna Badara Vindayo, Chinotya Badrani Chashantanoti, Sattvasya Shuddhim, Padamatma Bhaktim, Jnana Cha Vijnana Viraga Yuktam. And that's what we're after. So where is it? That constant remembrance of Krishna, avismriti Krishna, of his lotus feet, okay, has the first thing, chinotya baddhani, it destroys everything inauspicious. And shang tanoti, sham is the first syllable in this word, name of Krishna, of Shiva. What is it? Sankarshan, actually Sankarshan, I think. No, that's something else. Anyway, sham means good fortune. So it destroys everything inauspicious and increases your good fortune unlimitedly. Shang tanoti. What is it? Shambhu. That's the Shambhu. So, and then it goes on. It purifies your existence. Sattvasya shuddhim, just like Rishabdev says, right? Sattvasya shuddhim, padamapna bhaktim, inspires bhakti to the Supreme Soul, Krishna, characterized by knowledge, realized knowledge, jnana, vijnana, and what's the last one? Vairagya. Vairagya. The whole thing is there, all from hearing and chanting. Now, just one other note on this Ashtaka. You may want to look it up. There's 3 verses in there that are almost identical to verses in the 5th chapter, 1st canto. These famous verses of Vyasadeva speaking to Narada Muni, Narada Muni speaking to Vyasadeva, inspiring him to write the Bhagavatam. Prabhupada would quote these verses all the time. Maybe the most famous is Nayadvichas chitta badang hare yasho. Those verses, those words, those books that don't have anything to do with glorifying Krishna are just like a garbage heap. A pilgrimage place for crows, you know. Now, he said that, he wasn't exactly saying that everything he wrote so far is a garbage heap, but he was making the point that because he had written all the Puranas, Mahabharata has the Bhagavad Gita. No, but it didn't, none of the books wholly and solely glorified Krishna, the process of devotion, and the devotees, you see. So you have to write that book, the Bhagavatam, that's wholly and solely, the Dharma Projita Kaitaboda, that kicks out all cheating religions, you know, it's purely about bhakti. And so that's what he did, went into trance, he became inspired. So those verses, the 3 of them, Nayadvachas Chittabadang, Tadbhagavasargo, which Prabhupada is such an important verse, Prabhupada put in his preface. Why? Because it inspired him, because his English wasn't that perfect. He knew that, you know, he said that. But here this verse says, even if imperfectly composed, those words that just purely glorify Krishna are heard, chanted, and relished by great souls. So he put that right in his preface. The preface is a part of the book that tells how the book came to be written, how I wrote it, why I wrote it, who I wrote it for. You know. So, and then the third one, nice coming up at Shuddha that any so-called process of transcendence that's impersonal, that doesn't mention a Krishna, is basically useless, you know. So those 3 verses are there, and it's at the end also, beginning and the end of the Bhagavatam. And Vishwanath Chakravarti noted that, and said these very important verses, they're just like buying the book, you know, on the front and the back. So this Ashtaka is very nice, and I can give you a PDF of my slideshow that I did with it. Very inspiring. So that's how we can escape from this imprisonment by the subtle body, which contains all of our false ideas and all of our, you know, lust and everything. It's all there in the mind. And unless we clean that out and purify that before we leave the body, we have to come back again. Now, the wonderful thing about bhakti is nothing is lost. There's no diminution. So we may not be completely pure by the time we leave the body, but we don't lose anything. We'll get born in a family where we can continue, you know. But why prolong the agony? We should become very serious to try to kick out all of the things that are inducing us to forget Krishna and really, you know, increase our remembrance and our chanting and surrender. And then we can go back to Godhead this lifetime. Prabhupada really encourage us to try to do it. Okay, so it's 8:35. Are there any comments or questions that we can...
Hare Krishna.
All right, if there's no locals, maybe they'll think of something. Oh, there. Nagar Kirtan people, give them the mic. Right behind you, right up, not the other side. All right, both sides. Right there, right there, right there.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you, Prabhu. What a perfect class. Couple things came to mind, but I wanted to ask you, I thought that was a really interesting point that you brought up about how in one sense it's more important that we don't forget Krishna. That's kind of like a neglected, maybe Anga or something, like don't forget Krishna. And it seemed like you were saying that there's points where we're deliberately forgetting Krishna. So that's, when we get up from this class and we go about our day, there's going to be some point in our day where we just decide, I'm going to forget Krishna right now. And that's just part of our routine every day. And we just do it every single day. But today, we don't have to do that, right? So we could just stop forgetting Krishna if we just decide to. It sounded like you were saying that.
Well, here's the thing. This is where being a puppet comes in. Because we're so conditioned for lifetimes that kind of the default has been to forget Krishna. So remembering Krishna means undertaking austerities that we're not spontaneously attracted to, because we know our intelligence has been purified by some hearing and some association. All right, I'm not going to let the mind do this to me at this point. Okay, I like to tell the story about my first days in Krishna consciousness. Joining the temple in Brooklyn. So the first big surrender is getting up really early. And as soon as you do that, you have to surrender to that. Then comes another big hurdle, taking that cold shower. When I joined, it was late March. It was still winter, basically, in Brooklyn, New York, and I don't think they had any hot water in the shower. They do now. Yeah, okay.
Is that a recent development?
This was over 50 years ago now. Anyway, even if there was, you weren't supposed to use it. There was supposed to be part of that shower was supposed to be completely cold. So I'd never done anything like that. So I'm lining up to go in the shower, and said, okay, this is the test. Either I got to take this shower or I got to leave the temple, because that's part of the whole program. So I had been practicing Hatha Yoga for a few years, actually. And with that Hatha Yoga was some pranayama. And among that, I still use this today, by the way, I'm not ashamed to say. One of the breaths, the techniques is a heating breath. You should try it. If you're in a cold shower, and it's too cold to start that, really. So I used that. I took my 16-second shower. It came out and I said, oh, I don't have to bloop right now. I can stay. So there are various challenges. Going out and distributing books is a big challenge. But the intelligence, if it's strengthened by good association and by chanting, of course, then you say, no, mind, I'm not going to yield to that. And after a certain point, it's not an austerity anymore. It's just what you do. It's become there's other things that you have to deal with. So the idea is that as long as we have all this conditioning, and part of that conditioning is preventing us from constantly remembering Krishna. So that's why we're encouraged to chant anyway, even if the chanting is not pure. If you keep chanting, that's going to be remembering Krishna to some degree, even if your mind is not perfectly 100%. So the chanting is really where we make advancement. When you can increase the chanting and really hear. This is why these japa retreats were great. I was listening to one online now. They do Satyananda Swami's specialty. It wasn't in America, but it's on YouTube. And he was running. He was explaining all these different things, because then you're not doing anything but thinking about the holy name all day. There's this seminar, this talk, that talk. Then there's a day where you chant 64 rounds. That was fun, And you really confront yourself, You see, well, this is, where my mind is wandering, so let me go. So that's the practical and the basic way in which we can always remember Krishna, by improving our chanting. But I'll tell you another way, and Prabhupada encouraged us to do this, memorizing verses, with understanding the meaning of every word. So the meaning is coming out to you, Like I'll tell you this morning, there's so many verses the Rupa Goswami wrote. They're just beautiful descriptions of Krishna, delightfully put, Like now we're in the month of Damodar. So it's not just the Damodar pastime that we're remembering, but if you read the Bhagavatam, there's all these other little baby pastimes. He's coming under the control of the gopis, Oh, Gopal, if you dance, I will give you half a sweet. And so he's dancing like this, and all kinds of stuff. And crawling, the crawling itself is a tremendous delight. One of my favorite lines of all times is in the Govinda Virodavali, which, the Ashtadash, the Leela Chanda, Rupa Goswami's summary of Krishna's Vrindavan Leela, plus killing of Kṛṣṇa. Just delightful, you know. So he's describing, the whole idea is just like, even in English we do it. You know, if we talk about the Ramayana, or we talk about that, then what comes to mind is what you know about Ram Leela. You may, oh yeah, I remember the description of him killing Rakshas, building that bridge, you know. If you just hear that, if you're reminded about the Leela. So he has Gargamuni came. It's described in detail in the Bhagavatam. He gave the names of Krishna, a very important, wonderful pastime. So he has half a line for that, just to remind you. Navashishu Leela Langitahayana. When a year of his Shishu Leela is crawling, little baby Leela, before he even is hurting the calves. You know, that's Damodar Leela, running from his mother. Navashishu Leela Langitahayana Garga Vishkuta Nama Rasayana. After a year of that little baby Leela, then Gargamuni came, and with the secret name-giving ceremony. You know, if you read Krishna book, you see. Nama Rasayana, all these names which are filled with nectar, you know. And then here comes the line. Ringana Mandata Nandana Ketana Mananimatapata Gokula Chaitana. Ringana, with his crawling, he decorated the courtyard of Nanda Maharaj and delighted the hearts of all of the elders in seeing him. With his sweet beauty as he's crawling. So Bilva Mangal Thakur, he takes that image of Krishna crawling and he makes a whole little verse out of it, you know, more extensive. Kinkini kinkana dabasarangana bhavadinkana sadatantam kunkuna kunkuna padiyukadam kankana gadabushadam hadim vande. It's a meditation of Krishna crawling. As he's crawling, the kinkini, the sound of his waist bells. He's not wearing much more than waist bells. And the waist bells, you know, are tinkling very sweetly. Kinkini. He's crawling with great energy, great enthusiastic across, you know, the courtyard. And then kunkunu padiyugalam. His ankle bells are making the sound kunkunu padiyugalam. Kankana bushadim hadam. And he's got some other ornaments made, golden ornaments that are tinkling. You know, but the sound is just like it's off the charts. And then there's these little Glubjaman verses. You know, they're really short and small, but they're just Amba vinhitachumba manatata bimba tadamakalamba lakadayadeva. We're singing every morning. Mother Yashoda is kissing him, you know. So that's Amba, that's the mother. Amba Malatada. She's kissing the pure, pristine face of her little child who has the bimba fruit lips, which we also talk about there. It's the same thing. Amba vinhit chumba manatada. Bimba dada. Bimba dada is these bimba fruit lips. Mukha, he's kissing his face and kissing his lips also. Amba vinhit bimba dada makalumba lakajayadeva. And also his hair is hanging down. You know, it's not tied in his baby. His hair is just like crow's feathers, just loose. You know, that's another thing with his early days. So can you imagine? You know, the Goswamis, they're just chanting these things all day. Hey, Jiva, listen to this one that I wrote. You know, they gather at Radha Damodar, right? And they're relishing like anything. That's what we're meant to do, isn't it? Madchitta madgata prana bodhayantak parasparam katayantastamam nityam tushyanti chadamandicha. Krishna describing right in the Gita. It says, those who understand that everything comes from me and that I'm the source of everything, they worship me with all their hearts. You know, those who are intelligent. How do they do that? They put their mind on me, madchitta, madgata prana, they dedicate their life energy, their activities to me. And they get together and they glorify me and experience transcendental bliss. Tushyanti chadamanti. They're nourished, you know, and they experience bliss. That's what the society is all about. So anyway, I just wanted to share some of these jewels with you. They're free. It takes about 5 minutes to memorize one, if you really try. And then I can pick up these jewels and put them in your pocket. Anytime, you can call them. And share them, that's the best part. I don't know what the answer to, was that an answer to a question of yours? Oh, of Nagar
But it was beautiful, and I wanted to thank you for inspiring me to remember Krishna all times and everywhere, including the laundromat.
Oh yeah, we met.
Hare Krishna. And do you remember what your...
There was some verse I must have given.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't remember which one it was.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Okay, Vijay Krishna, you're on. You're going to go next.
Yes, Dravida Prabhu, thank you very much. You're most kind. Dandavat Pranams. Prabhu, do you mind reciting again the quote from the purport to the text you chose for today, which begins with, quote, "When the mind is engaged at the lotus feet of Krishna," at the middle of the purport, more or less.
All right, let me find it here. It's a long purport, no? All right, give me a few more. Oh, here it is. All right, so he quotes Ambarish, Savaimana Krishna Padada Vindya. When the mind is engaged at the lotus feet of Krishna, the intelligence is purified. And then the intelligence gets inspiration from the Supersoul, the Dhammi Buddhi Yogam Tam.
Yes,
yeah.
that is the quote. Thank you very much. Prabhu, my question is related more to the last part of the quote, which says that the intelligence becomes purified, and then, because of becoming purified, gets inspiration from the super soul.
Yeah.
So based on this, my exact question is, how intelligent must a temple president be in order for him to be the president of a Hare Krishna temple? That is my question. Is it that he must be there walking hand in hand with the super soul the whole time?
No. The temple president has to be a very surrendered soul, because there's always problems, there's always issues, there's always devotees who are not doing what they're supposed to do, or doing things they're not supposed to do. And so he has to be a representative of Prabhupada, representative of the GBC, say at this time, and know the standards and be able to follow himself. And he has to be able to stay enlivened enough to stay in the post. And so that, you know, that enlivenment will come when the temple is humming and things are going on nicely and people are doing their duties. And whatever challenges there are, he's able to meet, you know, without freaking out and blooping. I mean, it's a difficult post. But Guna Maharaj made the joke that, there was an animal involved, but anyway, that one thing that devotees won't surrender to, they'll surrender to, like, you know, running into fire, but they won't. But it's very hard to find one who'll surrender to be a temple president, because there's always issue, and it can wear you down. You know, I mean, someone like Subhas is like incredible. He's been the temple president there in LA for more than 30 years. You know, and we've had a succession of presidents here. You know, and does anyone want to volunteer?
Dravida Prabhu, did it happen for you to be a temple president already?
No, I have no administrative capabilities at all. However, I was a production manager for Back to Godhead for a while, and that was kind of a managerial position. But it wasn't like temple president. There were only 3 or 4 people I had to deal with, and they were all pretty, you know, fixed up, so things went pretty smoothly. But no, it's the thing is, whatever we want to do, for Krishna or not for Krishna, the Super Soul is going to either sanction it or not. Now, if it's service, he'll not only sanction it, but give you more intelligence on how to do it, give you inspiration, because it's a different thing. There's one purport. I'm going to look it up, Vijay. I have your email, and it's all about this the Super Soul's activities, and it's fascinating. It's in the 2nd canto, I believe. I'll look it up. Yeah, right near the end of chapter 3, and it's famous. You know, we can intuit, we can understand the presence of the Super Soul by just contemplating our own intelligence, because the intelligence is being informed by the Supersoul of how to do this and how to do that, you know? Anyway, it's very enlivening and informative. And so I'll send you that, and then you can come with a whole bevy of questions.
Yes, of course.
Okay?
Thank you very
I think
much.
it'll help.
Okay.
It'll help. Haribol. Okay,
Haribol.
all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Haribol. Sorry, it's kind of late. Oh, I can answer after.
I just had a quick comment. So, like, I'm always, like, growing up in the West, like, I'm just trying to dovetail my preaching so that it can resonate more with, like, you know, Christians, for example. So I just liked how this pastime that you were describing resembles, or you know, the pastime of Christ resembles that pastime where, you know, Christ fed the masses with, like, I think two fishes and 2 loaves of bread or whatever. Okay, yeah. So I just liked how that just resembles that pastime. Yeah, so he fed the masses, you know, with a very limited supply of food, and he was able to multiply that. So you know this. Yeah. So then that resembles this, you know, what you were describing, where, you know, the Kshatriyas were filled, and so they left. Yeah, so that I like that. That's really nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, devotees have, you know, if you pump them, they'll